Welcome back. Now, in an effort to aid Eskom in terms of ending load shedding, government offered citizens a tax reprieve of 25% on the cost of solar panels. This incentive ended in February, but despite this, Absa still sees demand for solar loans going through the roof. Punki Modise, who's a Chief Strategist and Sustainability Officer at the Absa Group, joins us with more detail. Punki, an absolute pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant, Punki. Let's talk about the uptake, when this incentive was announced by National Treasury, and if we did see a boom post the announcement.
Yes, certainly. I think when the announcement was made, you obviously started to see, customers taking up the offerings. But also at the same time, I think it was announced at a time when load shedding was at its highest. So at that point in time, I think it came at an opportune, time for customers. So my sense is, the uptick that we saw, it was a combination of customers trying to really solve for themselves, but also it was a welcome relief, I think, for a lot of customers.
I must ask you also, if we saw this uptake happen, across different earnings groups within South Africa, if it was concentrated maybe also in a specific home value, for instance, there, maybe concentrated also within the middle class and above, really showing that it was also an issue of affordability for many South Africans.
Yeah, I think to our earlier discussion just now, is I think the middle class and upper, they were already preparing themselves, to take on, some of these offerings of, to alleviate load shedding. So what you saw is that even at the lower end, of the customer segments, you started to see some of those customers beginning to take up the opportunity. So I think broadly, it was a welcome relief, and it came at the right time, for everyone. When load shedding, I think, what was at its highest, that we've ever seen in a long period of time.
Did it result in people going off grid completely, or are we seeing here, combinations coming on board for South Africans, mainly staying on the grid, but of course having the solar PV also really integrated into the homes?
Yeah, I think, when you think about, the solar solution, you've got to take a step back and think about, how is it solving, the challenge, especially around energy. To a greater extent, yes, it's a great tool to have, but it is intermittent. So it's not available, fully all the time, because the battery capacity at some point in time, it does, die out. So given that, a lot of customers, what we are seeing is that when they take up the solar solution, it's actually a hybrid, solution. When load shedding is back, then they go back, to using normal power generation, and then rely on solar when there's no electricity at all.
Now that there's been a few months, Punki, since the incentive was pulled back by National Treasury, where are we seeing demand now? Is it still something that, consumers are keen to get their hands on?
Yeah, I would say we're seeing a significant surge, particularly, from corporates. Interestingly, I think a lot of your mid-tier, to high-level corporates, they really embracing, these solutions, en masse. And when we as an organization, talk about the fact that we are the largest lender, in renewable energy, it's mostly also our corporates, embracing these capabilities so as to ensure that, they can maintain or sustain their businesses even when there is load shedding. So I would say demand is still significant, particularly in that space. And also SMEs, we're seeing quite a couple of SMEs, continuing to take up this solution.
Very, very interesting. I mean, you did mention, Absa's lending there for sustainability. I'm keen to also just, understand how Absa's own climate goals as an organization is feeding into how you are lending.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question. And it's more from a point of view that charity does begin at home. So from an Absa perspective, we've really done quite a lot. So if you look at our commitments in this space in 2018, we went out with a commitment to reduce our own carbon footprint by 30%, or based on that 2018 view that we had. So when you look at where we are at this point in time, we actually, are far down in terms of the achievement of that target. A significant proportion of it, has been achieved. And my sense is by the time we get to 2030, we would have significantly surpassed that target. So from an Absa perspective, we continue to find innovative ways also of electrifying, our buildings. And this is not just here in South Africa, but it's across the continent where we've got, footprint as an organization.
I'm actually keen to also speak about some of the work that you are doing from a sustainability perspective. That is the rest of the continent facing there, Punki, and some of the exciting activities that could be emerging there.
Yeah, so I think, we talk a lot about just transition as a concept that as an organization we've adopted. And for us, I think we advocate for it because we do believe that it balances, nicely social inclusion, with decent employment coupled with, I think, the imperative to protect the environment at the same time. So when you take a combination of those three factors, which we normally refer to as a trilemma that we are trying to solve, because you can't really, solve for one without the other. You always have to be balancing these three aspects. For us, I think then that's how we think about solving, particularly in the context of the continent, especially because when you look at the continent, energy availability is a big challenge. And also, the cost of energy is also quite expensive. So we think about, finding solutions that will help to reduce the cost of energy, because without energy, as we've seen here in South Africa, people suffer. So it becomes an imperative, in that regard. So Absa does have solutions, across the board to try and assist, customers as well as communities to transition during this time.
Well, it's been a pleasure hearing from you, and also exciting to hear about all those exciting developments. Punki, thank you for your time this afternoon. That was Punki Modise. She's Chief Strategy and Sustainability Officer at the Absa Group.